And if I can take and just tweak a few settings and have a little bit more polish, I think it goes a long way. So when I think of cinematic, I think of the van lifers out there with their cameras and doing something like this from Christian Schaefer. It's pretty cool, right? Now, a lot of times getting that look and feel involves a lot of color grading and it takes a lot of editing time. As a solo creative entrepreneur, I just don't have the time to do that. But I still want to get a cinematic look with the Canon M50. So I went back and did some research, and thought about the different situations I'd be in, and then I went and said, okay, well, how much time and effort and cost would it really take to go kind of somewhat cinematic and give me a more polished look? And I realized it wasn't that much. So in this video, I'm going to share with you some of the tips and tricks I found in the research along the way. Check it out. The different things I'd be doing. One of them would be, let's say, taking some video of the gourds that I sell, or being outside and doing some B-roll. Now, I can't go outside right now because unfortunately it just snowed and I don't have a filter yet for the Canon M50. So I'll have a later video on that. Because in order to have the settings that you want to get the kind of cinematic look, you need a filter as kind of sunglasses to achieve the effect. I don't have the filter yet, so I have to wait for that. But there are different things I can do. Inside we've got some decorations for the fall that are some fake leaves. And so I took that and pretended that was like a cinematic B-roll effect that I was going to do. So between those and also sitting here and talking to you, I'll give you some examples of the look and feel you can get with just a quick few settings with the Canon M50 to get it kind of cinematic. To get a particular look and feel, it really takes some practice, but at least you can get off auto mode, dial in with the camera a little bit, and give it a little more polish and feel using a Canon M50. First, let me show you the different look that you can get. So right now, this is in manual mode, and this is the kind of look you're getting. Now, is this truly cinematic? Let's find out. I'm going to go to auto mode, and you can decide for yourself. Is this kind of a cinematic look or isn't it? I can go in and change some settings and make it better, and that's where the practice comes in handy. But for now, let's go to auto mode and see what that looks like. Here we are. This is auto mode. I'm in the same location I was before, and this is the kind of effect you get. Now, is there a real big difference between the two? I think the cinematic part is more of kind of a subtle effect that gives you more of a professional polish. So even though it's not necessarily a stark difference for some, it's a big difference for others. There are certain people who they'll listen to audio and they'll be able to tell the difference between all these different microphones, and others, like myself, who have more of a difficult time telling the difference. And that happens visually too. Some people really look at a picture or a video and they'll be able to call out the differences, whereas until you see those side by side, you won't notice it. So it's much like going into the store when you buy something. Seeing a TV screen side by side, you go, oh wow, I want the bigger one because look at the difference between the two. But when you bring it into your living room, it's really not going to matter that much. I mean, the store is where you see the biggest difference. When you see stuff side by side, like with an image or a video, you're going to see that difference. But when you're watching it, you're really not. And so when there are those really subtle differences that you get, like let's say with certain color grading that you can do, you know, is it really going to be worth it? Because it takes a long time. There's certain videos you might make that you say yes to. But there's others, like doing really quick, fast YouTube videos where you're really not going to spend the time, but you still want a little bit of polish on there. So I think that's where going from auto mode here to manual mode right here makes a difference. It's actually really easy. I'm going to show you in 2 seconds. First, I'll show you the footage and then some quick adjustments you can make with the camera. And it's all about practice. All the video stuff you do is all about practice. It's not complicated. It's not time consuming. And then at the end, I'll show you the ND filter I'm getting and we'll see how that does when it arrives. Now, there's a lot of ND filters out there. And at the end, I'll kind of describe the one I got and why. And then in a later video, I'll show you the effects of that. Okay, first, let's look at the footage. This is really easy to do. It's just a few quick settings and you're off to the races. So your shooting mode, you're going to go up to number 1, go to shooting mode, and you're going to change. You'll be right here. You'll change from auto to manual and just click OK. And then, back to your menu. Now, once you've got your shooting mode to manual, you have to change some settings. Now, you do want in general, a lot of people recommend going for 24 frames per second. And so you can just make sure you're at that rate, and you can change your movie quality here by just going in here and changing one to the other. I find it easier to go. Now you can make some further adjustments in here in the menu. I find it easier to go out of the menu and look at what I'm doing here. So we're going to go here and make sure this is 1/50. And then we use our dial on the front of the camera, and we'll switch to here. We just want to make sure it's open as wide as possible. Now, obviously you don't have to. It's dependent on your light. I just keep this open as wide as possible because I want the highest ISO I can. Then you're going to go to your function button at the top of your camera and switch over to your ISO. And you want to go have as much ISO as possible, depending on what light you have. If you can do 100, then you definitely want to do 100, because then it doesn't get as grainy. And that is about all you set. That's how easy it is. So then all you're doing is adjusting this. When you're setting up your camera, you adjust it and then you start filming. So it's that easy to set up. Okay, the only other thing you're gonna wanna do is adjust your white balance. Now to adjust the white balance, you can go into your menu and do that, but I find that kind of cumbersome. Instead, you can make a custom function. And what this does is it allows you to adjust buttons that are available to you on the camera, which is really cool. And that's the way you can make your shutter button into a record button. But here we want to go into custom functions, and here you'll be able to see what's available for you. Okay, so here you go into the controls that you can do, and you just go down to the trash. Now, I don't use a trash very often. So why not use it for something else? And I set it to adjust my white balance. And so yours is going to be for trash, obviously. And when you set OK, you're going to have to go until you go through all the different things available to you until you reach the white balance. And then you click that and select OK. And you're done. Now what that does is it allows you to select white balance. So I'm going to hit that button, and then white balance comes up. It's going to be on auto. What you want to do is adjust the one that makes sense for whatever you're filming. And that can depend, obviously, on what you're doing. So you go to white balance and adjust it. Obviously, white balance gets into a whole different realm. But initially, you can just bounce between like daylight, shade, cloudy, tungsten, one of these presets. Then you click OK and you're done. And that's the way you can set it up so you have a button that quickly gets you to your white balance.
There is one other thing you'll want to do. And that is when I was doing my gourds or when I was doing the leaves, I realized I needed to be in manual mode for this to work effectively. And that's the other thing. You have to get used to using manual mode to achieve a particular look and feel. This is something that happens with practice. If you're going cinematic, obviously you're not going to make a blockbuster movie, but the thing of it is, I think that little polish goes a long way. And you realize it's just 4 different settings. Awesome to just go ahead and play with. And you get some great results. Obviously, there's a lot more you can do with white balance, and of course you can do color grading. The whole idea behind this is just to get it so as a solo creative entrepreneur, I can sit down, create some videos that have just a little bit more polish. The more tasks that you add to creating a video, the harder it is to just sit down and do it. Ideally, as a solo creative entrepreneur, I want to just be able to just sit down, create my video, and go. The more friction I have to creating that video, the less likely I'm going to do it. Now, as a solo creative entrepreneur, I recognize this is easy enough to just sit down and create with just a little bit more polish. And I think people will notice that even in landing page videos. If I put out, like, let's say a YouTube ad or a Facebook ad, I want it to stand out just a little bit more. And if I can take and just tweak a few settings and have a little bit more polish, I think it goes a long way. And I'm hoping you see that too, and that it's not overly complicated. It's something you can definitely do. Highly recommend it. Next video, I'm going to do some video marketing with this little guy right here. It should be fun. Stay tuned. And if you found this helpful, be sure to give it a like. Thanks a lot for watching.